Hi everyone, I'm Bienja Kaya and I'm a collectivist at Premium Cola. So I'm here today with Uwe because I met him last year in, because I was writing my master thesis and I tried to find innovative companies with new business models and with a new kind, a modern kind of leadership, and who are focusing more on the employees instead of everything else. So Uwe helped me a lot while doing the research, and it added a lot of value to my work. And of course, when he told me today that he's going to come here and he wants to present, I was up for the task. And so this is the first time, so don't blame me if I say something wrong. So thanks for having us here, and thanks, although it's very nice weather outside, you're here with us. So I remember last year that it was pretty hard to find the right companies actually for the studies, because I found a lot of negative examples for companies that do it in a wrong way, that use CSR not properly, or that have a different focus on maybe profit maximization. So most of the examples were actually negative ones. So I want to start now the presentation with one example. This is where I was last weekend with some of my friends. It's a little town. It's called Kirchheim, and we go there every year for a weekend to barbecue, to meet each other, to enjoy the life for a small weekend. So you see the little houses there. You can rent those, and it's really it's a nice place. But in fact, this idyll is kind of deceptive, because this is also where the Amazon scandal happened 2 years ago. I don't know if you heard about it in the media or something. Anyone? If not, it's not a problem, because I will just explain it quickly. What happened there was that Amazon basically hired subcontractors that work, because they wanted to hire about 400 temporary workers, and the subcontractors and the security firm were actually in charge of basically taking care of the foreign workers, and the foreign workers were placed in this little town in Kirchheim, but because they gave the responsibility away basically to the subcontractors, they didn't know what happened afterwards. So the result was that basically the company, the subcontractors made some mistakes. So they, for example, they changed the contracts. So the people got paid less than they were actually what was actually agreed on in the beginning. They were forced to stay in houses with a lot of people, so only a lot of people in small houses for a few months while they were working there. So all this happened, and the media asked a few workers because of this situation, because they knew about it, and the end was basically a big scandal in the media. So what you can learn from that is that there are a lot of common mistakes that companies do these days. And I just put down a few of them, because I think what you can learn from all these small little cases that a lot of different companies make, it's most of the time you can break it down to like the same mistakes. So it's intransparent most of the time. You have inequality, like sometimes you treat workers in different ways. You focus more on the profit than actually on the people and on the social impact. You have most of the time top-down decisions, like a pyramid structure with a CEO that gives the decision, and sometimes they also give away the responsibility. And also the contracts that were made there, which were not agreed on in advance, this is also something you can see in a lot of different places. So the question is, how can we solve these mistakes? I think we are all here today because we think, or we believe, that CSR is a new way of that companies should integrate this as a basis for the future in the business models. So thinking about society, environmental focus, and also on the economic growth, it all goes hand in hand. So for example, when you look at premium cola, if you sometimes put more focus on the employees and the society and the environmental focus, you might not grow as fast as you intend to do with other companies that try to maximize their profit. For example, Uwe himself, he says that sometimes we might reach a point where we cannot grow any longer. I mean, they haven't reached this point yet, but if you have to loan from the bank and all that stuff comes additional, you might reach this point, and then it's okay if you have different if you have a different focus. So usually you have a lot of benefits from CSR, and if you build your company correctly on the foundation of the CSR rules. But what Amazon did in that case, they basically reached the opposite, because I don't know. Okay, it's a bit modern art. So basically, what they have done is, with this scandal or with this kind of behavior, they didn't attract new employees or a good workforce. They didn't create positive media interest. In fact, they had a really big storm, and they didn't enhance their influence in the industry. So, of course, they differentiated themselves from competitors, but not in a very good way. So, So, why we are here today is because we think you should think different. If you're studying either CSR, if you start about thinking of starting your own business, if you're already maybe doing it, if you're already an entrepreneur, or if you just want to work in a company with an open spirit. So just take what you think from this, what we are telling you today, and just try to apply it wherever you go. And what I liked about Premium Cola, that's why I also picked the company for the thesis, I like that they are really employee focused. It's not about profit maximization or about things that are not important. It's really about the employee. And my thesis was actually, I tried to figure out what are the main points that enhance employee engagement today. And I found out that by doing research on 3 different companies, one of them was Premium Cola, by doing in-depth interviews with the CEOs and the employees, and also by reading really good books, and I saw also some documentaries, and I read a lot of academic papers, and all of the companies that that crossed my path were sharing the same spirit. And that was basically the first thing why I wanted to think about employee engagement, was that I read this thing of the Gallup Workplace Study, that only 30% of employees are actually engaged at work. So can you believe that? More than 80% of everyday's people who work in companies, they are actively disengaged. Basically, they don't want to be there where they're working. They don't like what they are doing. And sometimes they're even that annoyed by what they are doing, so they manipulate the work. So what I found out when I researched on the 3 companies is that there's a mixture. If you place the employee in the center of attention, you have different approaches, of course. Some companies focus more on the leadership part, or the culture, or the work organization, but this whole thing is kind of like a network, and it's like a living thing that interconnects, basically. And those are all things that I found out while talking to Uwe and to his employees, and about so leadership part is one of the major things that is very important, because the leader has to give away some power. They have to understand that you want to, if you release some of your power, and if you accept that there are low hierarchies, then it can work. So for example, with Premium Cola, Uwe is kind of like a moderator in the system. He will tell you about it later. And it's very interesting how he interacts with all the partners and the employees. And there is no management, basically. So everyone can pick their own work and can work on the things that they like. So that's also something. And everyone is working on an equal footing. So even if you just started, or if you are there for a few years, if you are the gastronome of a hotel, or if you are just the bottler, it doesn't matter. Everyone is equal, and everyone is treated on an equal basis. And the really nice thing is the consensus decisions that they take. Everything is talked through until you come to a conclusion with everyone is happy with that. It takes longer, but in the beginning, but it pays off. And for the culture, this has to be supported by the culture. So the open culture is something that everyone nurses. If I talk to the employees, if I read newspapers about Premium Cola, it was always the same. Everyone uses the same words to explain something. So it's really already innate. It's really what they believe. And those are the values, and they are open, so open source, so you can access it everywhere. This is a totally different approach. And for example, the work organization is also something that you need in correlation, because if you don't set the right setting for people, in Premium Cola, for example, you can work wherever you want to work. Some people work in Hamburg, some work in Dresden, some work in other places. So it doesn't matter anymore. Those borders are not there. And this also, the goal is also to reduce stress in this system. It's really interesting because you don't pressure people anymore. You just plan in advance. For example, you just talk to bottlers. Hey, when instead of hey, you have to deliver at this time, you ask, when can you deliver? So it makes the person more free and easy to plan for themselves. So I already talked about the consensus decisions. If you think about the Amazon case back again, at Premium, that wouldn't have happened. They would have had a hard time to actually get in the situation, because with consensus decisions, if you ask people, do you want to stay in this place? Do you want to have security there? It wouldn't have been possible. The responsibility stays with everyone, so they don't push it away to some subcontractors, and because anyway, you have to think the media was really bad after the scandal. It came basically back to the company, the responsibility for this. They couldn't blame it on the subcontractors. And on the other hand, you cannot, if there are no contracts in the company, that was, we will explain this later. You cannot manipulate contracts. And of course, the open culture. I will skip this, or maybe because after researching on 3 different companies, I came to the conclusion that there are a lot of similarities if you really properly want to engage your employees. So this is basically the outcome. If you are interested to read the work, or to just, you will get the presentation anyway later. But I see this whole thing not really as fixed points that you have to integrate in your company. It's more like a network structure. So in some companies, you might be able to use the one point, basically the consensus decisions. In other companies, you cannot maybe apply this. So you have to just see which companies you go in, or which universities, or yeah, whatever, and then you can say, maybe this part I can apply this here. Maybe this one doesn't work, and so this is evolving. And this is exactly what it comes to. In the end, you have the whole, and the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, so we have to think more in networks. And if you want to read more, those are some of the books that have a lot of very good best practices, a lot of good companies from the USA, from France, from India, and also those 2 documentaries. On the left one, Augenhöhe, this is where Uwe was featured with Premium Cola. And if you want to get more into that topic, I recommend them to you. So I think we have come to this point where companies have to decide, are they going in this direction or are they choosing the CSR path? And I think you have a very good example of someone here who can talk, who can tell you which path he took.
Okay, this is actually a little embarrassing because I have been doing like more than 500 talks until now, and this was her first one. I think it was so good. And I don't really know what to say from now on because you explained it all, I think. And I'm trying to get into a little deeper into the details of the company. Maybe you'll find something useful from it. Bienja put it like, think different. I put it like, rewrite the rules of business, basically. And of course, you'll be learning rules here, right? How to run businesses and how to make profits and how to do advertising and how to manage and so on. And I think these rules can be rewritten, basically. Just a few words about the company. It's 1.4 million bottles sold per year last year. We deliver to 200 cities in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And we do so with a collective of 1,680 commercial partners. This is my previous slide, I know. And we don't have a single contract with every single partner. So no written rules, no written contracts, just some emails. And we didn't have a single lawsuit in over 14 years of running the company. And when I'm asked if the company is a success, I think that's a criteria for success. 0 lawsuits with 0 contracts with so many commercial partners over all these years. The main product looks like this. Pretty decent, I hope. And, well, it's an actual product. We produce, we deliver, we sell. And we get called all kinds of things, like Agile and Scrum, like economy for the common good, like post-growth economy, or anything you might like. And I think it's more about a general idea of what the company is about. And we also get called a social business, which I looked up and found out that the purpose of a social business typically is to generate profits or to aim for social disadvantages of people by doing the company work. And most companies I know in the drinks industry who frame themselves as social business, they do organic or fair trade lemonade, maybe. They typically are standard business with a social added value, like 3 cents per bottle in social causes or something. So I think they are just, in fact, business socials and not social businesses. And by doing so, they are trying to care for the negative effects of normal businesses they also add up to, and then try to heal the effects by finishing their work for the social cause, which I think is it doesn't start early enough. I would like to set up a company which is really a social business, which aims to have as few negative impacts on the world as possible, so to have a real social business. And the main idea behind these thoughts is that I feel that humans should be treated as equal as possible, no matter where they come from, what color their skin has, their gender, no matter which role they have in society, no matter which role they have in a company. So I don't get the point why I, as the funder of a company, should be entitled to give orders to others. I don't see why the big customer is more important as a human than the small customer. I don't see why the internal partner of a company is more important typically than the external partner. Because these are all humans, right? Humans who should have equal rights and be treated as equal as possible. And this is pretty uncommon in the business world. Typically, I, as the owner, would have the chance to give orders to others, which I don't get as a general idea. And that's why we have come up with a different strategy of coming to decisions, basically, which is called consensus democracy. And this is on one slide only. We agree on a common goal, which is equality for the people, basically. And then we discuss pretty openly with everybody who wants to discuss, every commercial partner and every consumer as well. And we discuss, sometimes longer. In the beginning, typically, it takes longer to gather everybody's needs and thoughts and wishes to come to a conclusion. But after like the first year or so, things got pretty quickly. So nowadays, discussions take like 2 weeks or something. And typically, after 1 week, one person comes up with a suggestion arising from the common decision discussion process. And with this suggestion, you can choose to not say anything, not to raise your voice. And if you choose to not say anything, you are letting it happen. And if you choose to respond, then you can join one of these 4 reaction schemes. And still, the decision is going through because there is no veto involved, which is the 5th chance of giving an answer to that. And the veto can be issued by any commercial partner and any consumer who is willing to take part in decision making as well. So the single person has lots of powers in this decision making, typically to avoid his or her being disadvantaged. So every Amazon worker, for example, in Bienja's example, would have had the chance to just veto them being surveyed by some security guys, and then this couldn't be happening. And this is the decision-making method we have been using for the past 14 years with 1,680 commercial partners without a single lawsuit. And also with partners who typically are not left-wing, collectively experienced, but trucking companies like drinks dealers and so on. So this is possible. And we needed only 2 precautions for this system not working. The first precaution is if we have a veto with anything and can't produce, actually, and can't make bottles and deliver them and sell them, then we couldn't generate the incomes of people. In the first example, we couldn't agree on an art picture on the backside of the labels, which is insane. You can't stop the whole company with such a minor issue. So we agreed then that if we can't produce, then I'm allowed to take a decision as the founder. And I did. I decided we don't do any art pictures this time, just blank labels, and that's it. And the second time we had such a problem was when we couldn't agree on a line of text on the front side of the labels, which then was a majority decision by the very exception. And these were the only 2 times we couldn't agree on a consensus. And you need to have a plan B for such a situation, but if you have, we have been running into this once every 7 years, so it's pretty much possible to run a company with such a decision-making model. And the second precaution we also needed was for idiots. There's a small percentage of idiots in humanity. I think it's like 0.5% or something. And we had 2 people who stole from us. And of course we had to react to somebody stealing from us. So we have come up with a firing process which is as consensus-oriented as possible. And it works like this. You can be nominated for getting fired by anybody in this collective. So I could nominate you, for example, because we know each other. And I would have to give an explanation for this. And if an explanation, and you will lose your right to veto your own firing. So if my explanation is pretty good and proven and all right, then nobody else would issue his or her veto. And if the explanation is not that good, then somebody will veto it. So then I couldn't fire you, and you would be staying in the company. And of course, you could nominate me as well, and I would lose my right to veto. And we had this 2 times in more than 40 years. So there's 1 idiot every 7 years, which is pretty nice, I can tell you. I don't know how often do you have to work together with idiots? Once every 7 years, that's okay. And when we come to the solutions and decisions, then we have to come up with a different way of dealing with them. Typically, companies write the decisions down and make their partners sign it for a given period of time, so we'll be having a contract. And this contract has the purpose that the agreement stays in place over the given period of time. So right now we might have the agreement here to be in the same room and have a nice evening and have a talk together and so on, and I could make you sign this. So like 1.5 hours you will have to stay here. And then something could happen. Your spouse could call, I'm in the hospital, you want to go there and care for him or her. Maybe there's a fire somewhere breaking up, or something might happen over the period of time when you want to instantly change the agreement. And you can't do so with a contract. That's the purpose of a contract, right? So that's why we didn't do any written contracts. So we have agreements, of course, on how much money everybody gets and who's doing roughly which work and so on. But these agreements can always be changed in an instant when they need to be changed. And this is also possible to run a company with such a spirit and with only 2 idiots in 14 years. And when building this up, I had funded it, and I had like 1,000 bottles of cola and sold them in Hamburg first. And then people called from other cities and asked, well, can we buy it here? And I was arguing, no, you can't. And I would have to hire a salesperson and send him there and sell to the bars. And if I did so, I would have to take a loan from the bank, and then I would have pressure to pay back the interest rates, of course, to the bank. And I wanted to avoid that, so I asked the consumer, basically. This is André in Lipsia in this picture. Maybe you could go to these 5 clubs or bars you know and you like and present the product to them and, of course, get money for it, but a little money. Like, at the time, it was 10 euros per hour. And when you manage to convince, like, 5 bar or club owners, then we can convince a dealer who will be delivering them together. And if we do so, then we can convince the wholesaler who will be delivering the region with the dealers, and thereby we can set up a pull strategy by the consumer. So the consumers decide where the product is being sold. And then they pull the bars, and the bars pull the dealer, and the dealer pulls the wholesaler. Which made it possible for me to kind of sneak around the actual funding process. Because funding, as far as I learned it at the university, goes like this. You have an idea, hopefully. You write down a business proposal, a plan for like 3 years, what you want to do, and also the numbers you make up mostly. And then you go to a bank and collect an investment to make it start, and quit your day job you might be having and go full risk being an entrepreneur, which is the stupidest thing to do in my opinion, because then you will be having maximum pressure at the beginning of the company where you don't have the experience and the knowledge and the network to actually run this properly. And you don't have time to develop yourself into it, but you're just adding all the pressure to the beginning, which I also didn't want to do. So I kept my day jobs I had and just built this up city by city, step by step, as quick as I could and not quicker. And therefore it took me 7.5 years to actually have a share per bottle and 8.5 years to make a living from it. But I think this was the healthy path to take, because I built it up as quick as I could and not quicker. And of course you have to be a little special kind of person to push this for 8.5 years until you make a living from it. But I think it was pretty much the right thing to do. And then you can go further with rewriting the rules. For example, the first wholesalers called after some years and said, well, my little boy, they were talking like my little boy, you know, I'm a big customer for you. I collect large amounts, maybe from here to from the production plant to the area here, and then distribute in this area. But this is only once, so this is more efficient. You have to load the truck only once, you have to care for only one customer, you have to invoice only one customer, so it's an efficiency gain. I need a volume discount for that. And I looked into it and found that there is already a hidden volume discount, because of course it's cheaper and easier to send 1 truck only than to send 5 trucks. So the wholesaler would already have a larger share for himself, by combining the amounts for common transportation, which is also good for the environment. We want to have that combined instead of 5 single trucks going here. But if you add a volume discount to that, the big wholesaler would earn twice as much just because he's big, which again is against the idea of equal treatment. So we decided we don't give volume discounts on the first hand, and we do the opposite. We give anti-volume discounts to the small dealers because otherwise they would have very high transportation costs over here. So we lower the price of the product to make it a little more bearable for them. And by doing so, we were able to start in regions which were otherwise inaccessible. And we have more small dealers than big dealers, which makes the whole company more stable because it resides on more partners. And we have invented the anti-volume discount. And I'm in a business school here talking about anti-volume discount, which is pretty fun. We find such solutions because we combine what is called, in scientific terms, the end-user innovation management. We ask the consumers. And the corporate user innovation management, we ask the professional logistics. And both give their ideas and shares and knowledge, and then we discuss. The first year we discussed in an offline discussion room, basically. The next 12 years we use an emailing list with surprisingly few problems, which is, I think it's due to the culture we were able to establish there. And from the end of 2014 we are using an online forum. This is a screenshot of the forum. It's a pretty straightforward standard forum with only minor tweaks. For example, you can check certain areas and get informed by email when there's something new happening. And you can search for current suggestions with one click, but these are minor tweaks to the forum. And we have there like 75 commercial partners right now. It could be way more, but only 75 chose to take place in discussions there. And we have like 75 consumers there as well. So it's pretty much 50-50. And by combining these groups, we get to smarter solutions, I believe, than only by asking one of these. And there is, of course, an information area here. There's a discussion area here. Here is the area where jobs are being put, so you can just take jobs from there. You might want to try. And there's additional areas for scientific projects and an archive, and that's it. So pretty much straightforward. It's not a technical innovation we have there. Might be a cultural innovation, I don't know. Might be a process innovation. Some people call it social innovation even. But I think we talk to people which are involved to the company in some way because we have effects on them and they have effects on us. So we talk to people. This is really something, it's not new. I think we talk to people, that's basically it. And we talk about everything. So there's no filtering of topics. Anybody can raise any topic, anybody can comment on any topic. And of course we discuss also about money. Who's going to get which share when the bottle is sold? And the typical business school logic is in percentage margins, which I find hard to understand, basically. The drinks industry does that in units of 100 liters, 300 little bottles here. And I felt like we need to have this understandable, so I made a drawing on the paper first, and later it was an image here, to cut this down to the single bottle, to make it understandable. To give you an idea, you will get the slides if you want. This is the ingredients, 8.5 cents, 8.5 millimeters. This is 13.4 cents for the bottling plant. These are 15.5 cents, which are our shares. There's, for example, the accounting here, organization is here, CO2 compensation is somewhere here, and 1 cent for the anti-volume discount is here, and server domains, and 1 cent we put aside for crises as well. And then the project is ready to be picked up by wholesalers, and they deliver to the regions and sell for this price, and both sell for this price to the gastronomies, to the club and bar owners. And we have been agreeing on that in consensus as well for the past over 40 years. And of course, there's always some little changes. So we get more efficient here, something gets more expensive there. We were able to lower the price 4 times, and then we had to rise once, and we didn't lose a single customer. So there's always some little shifting going on here, typically once a year. But this is also pretty common. These are just costing units, right? So you have a costing unit of the accounting, and it's here 1.5 cents per bottle. And that's it. And you can put these to a huge Excel sheet, which is still called the Excel from hell, and put in there all the sales, and then have the costing shares, and you exactly know per week how the company is doing. And this is it. You can calculate like this. And if you do so, it has several effects on the people who are involved there. First one is, it's being made transparent. You as consumers can see that, which typically is not the case. So if you buy this bottle, you don't know who's going to get which share. But you as consumers are actually supporting this company. Without you buying these bottles, they wouldn't exist. So what's the point in not giving you the numbers? And the shares are pretty much stable. They change like once a year. So it's a reliable source of income for everybody who's getting paid here, which I think adds to another level of trust being possible. And this leads to very low fluctuation rates. We lose like less than 2% of all commercial partners over the past 14 years. And you have learned that already. It takes way more effort and time to find and convince new partners and get them into the structure and integrate them into accounting and everything than to just keep the old partners you have. And if you know people like for 12 or 13 or 14 years, you get to know them on a personal level as well, and you can have an easier working relation together. So it's getting pretty much efficient to run it like this. We are at the moment 8 people who form a so-called organizational teams, and we run 1,680 commercial partners, which is pretty much impossible according to current science. The current leading span you might have as a managing person is 20 people, according to science. You can lead 20 people. And we are 8 people, and we lead like 1,680. So it's, again, it's possible. And there's 2 things which are not in here, which have major consequences. First share is for advertising. We don't have that, because we feel that advertising costs you more money per bottle than actually needed for the ingredients and the work being done, and 1 cent for crises, putting aside. And then we would take that from you and pay for advertising, which gets on your nerves typically. Who of you needs advertising? Who of you likes advertising? Sometimes. It's fun, right? Who of you wants to pay 1 to 2 euros per crate more to have advertising? No. And the consumers we have there, they were the same. They will know we don't pay any cent anymore for advertising. So there's no what we call push communication with unwanted communication messages. So you go to a bar and the fridge blinks their logo at you. You go by the street and there's a branded truck going past you and you have to read the brand name. And you go to the internet and there's a banner plopping up. All unwanted communications which you actually pay for. So we don't want to have that. And of course, if you don't do advertising, the building up of the company is slower. But it was okay to be slow. I told you earlier about that. It was okay to take like 8.5 years to make a living from it, because I wanted to have it in a healthy form and not a quick advertising powered form. And of course we do communicate. So we offer a website, for example, which is pretty much outdated and, well, don't go there. But if you want, you will be going there actively and you will be pulling the information. And right now you are here, hopefully because you want to, so you are pulling and I'm allowed to talk. But if we step outside, I shouldn't be allowed to get on your nerves on the street and say, hello, we are having a cola and there's a beer as well. We are a very nice company, tipping you on the shoulder, which is actually what advertising does. So we don't want to have that. And the second thing which was not in there is profits. And profits, in my view, would occur when we have paid, of course, the ingredients and the people who work there, and put aside 1 cent for crises. And when there's still money left, then I think I'm a bad entrepreneur, because either I have given the suppliers not enough, or I have taken more money from you than actually needed. Why should the goal be to have profits? Because if the goal is, then I have the possibility to put pressure on the suppliers and rise my profits. Or I could keep this as secret and take more money from you than actually needed and rise my profits. And these are both, I think, well, the wrong ideas of what the purpose of the company should be. So there's no profits. Our goal is to have a black zero at the end of the year, which in turn means that we want to have the same salary for everybody, which is at the moment 18 euros per hour. For everybody we pay directly. And there's additions only if you are a parent, then you will get more for each child you will have, because as a parent you have more need of money. And if you have a handicap, you can get more for the percentage of your handicap. And third one, which is pretty current, if you want to have an external workplace somewhere, then you will get more for this external workplace. But that's it. So talking about culture, can you imagine what this does to people who work for such a project when the official founder and owner and CEO and whatever says, well, I'm also equal. I don't want to earn more than you do. Because, for example, you could argue that the trucking guy has the less qualified job than maybe I have, but he has also the more boring job than I have. And it's dangerous to drive 40 tons of trucks every day. And he's 10 days per month, he will be sleeping on some parking lot somewhere. So I think he should be earning more than I do, actually. And the accounting girl, Katja, she's very good. She wants to have more for the responsibility she has. And the bottling plant owner says, well, if I don't run the bottling plant, then you don't have anything to invoice. So I'm in power here, and I want to have my money for that. And we discussed this with 32 factors we could take into account of all kinds. And in the end, it was just same salary for everybody, 18 euros flat per hour, with additions only if you have a child, if you have a handicap, or if you want to have an external workplace. And this again takes another questions. How should the working hours these people do be measured? Do we want to have a punching card or a webcam over the heads of these people? Or how do we want to actually make sure that somebody is not invoicing 10 euros when there have been only 8 euros being worked? And my reply is, I won't. I won't check on the working hours these people invoice. Because sometimes there might be somebody issuing 10 hours when there have been only 8. But I don't want to have a camera over people's heads. And I don't want to have a punching system as well. I don't want to have a system of control, which is actually a system of mistrust, but I want to have a system of trust. And of course, some people tried, one of them, to invoice where there has been no work at all. And this is pretty easy to detect, so it's not a problem as well. And then additional questions come up. When should people actually getting this money? When they work, of course. When they are sick, of course. When they have to move houses, of course. They don't need less money while they are moving house, right? And when they come to a divorce and can't concentrate, of course. They need the same amount of money when they go through a divorce. And all kinds of stuff. And we have one person who's really taking us to the limits. She has been not working 10 months last year and still getting the full money. And we always kept like rearranging her jobs. Can you do this? Can you do that? We have a workplace for you. We have somebody who will care for you there. Can you find a way? And so on. And again, can you imagine what this does to people when the official owner of a company says, well, you will be getting the money although you can't work right now. You will be secured. And I think it actually makes people a lot happier. And everybody else sees that as well, of course. And if this person comes back, I will be having the most loyal collective member ever possible. And of course, I could have saved on some euros if I didn't pay her last year. But I think on the long run, it would be a stupid thing to do. But instead, I want to keep the people as secured as I am, because if I am sick, I still have the company. So why should these people don't be secured when they are sick? If we talk about equality. Bless you. So lots of questions and some answers. I was talking about the purpose of the company, which is not making profits, but to make enough money, and that's it. And the main purpose of the company is, I think, to care for all these 1,680 commercial stakeholders, although they are all freely run companies. I don't have a contract with them, so they don't have to do anything I asked them to. And we are only here. We have lots of interdependencies, but no real power, basically. The power comes from caring for all these people so well that they feel it's better than somewhere else in the industry and that they will be staying because they want to. And if I manage to do so, to care for all of these persons as a main moderator, that's actually my title, then I have proven two things. First thing is, it's possible to make a living from this. And second thing is, people are willing to pay a little more for it because I have to earn my rent and my fridge and so on as well. So there's 3 cents in here for me. And nobody ever even suggested to get rid of me, to fire me. Which is also pretty nice, I can tell you, because I know these people want me to do this for them. And it's, by the way, a new job, which hasn't been there before. It's a stakeholder moderator guy. And if I manage to moderate everybody so well that they stay and that they talk about it, and that I get invited to universities and that the media picks it up and so on, then more people want to join. I have to get them into the system as well. And then we have a company growth as a result of caring for everybody, and not as a result of banks pushing or me wanting to have profits or something. It's insane, right? And what freaks me out most, this wasn't even planned. I was just starting to run the company and I wanted to do things differently, rewrite the rules. I didn't like the ideas the so-called normal businesses had, so I wanted to do it a little different, and it has become such a project now. And when I talk about the company, I have to say something about what actually is the company. So what are the assets we have? And formally speaking, there is no office, so there's a laptop and a mobile phone, and that's it. But there's still the brand Premium Cola. And I own the brand still, because it was the cheapest way of funding it, basically. And with this brand, I could use, in theoretical form, the power to triple my share today, for example. What would you do if I tripled my share today without asking anybody? You wouldn't be here, right? So I think it's about, I lost ownership of the company in the process. Because the main reason I want to own something is I want to be able to decide over it without asking anybody. That's the purpose of ownership. And I kind of lost it because I can't just do anything I want with my company. Because I have promised consensus democracy to everybody from the very beginning, so it's not possible anymore. And then I thought, okay, if I don't own it, maybe I can give it away for free. Not the bottles, of course, they still cost something. But the reason why we exist, which is the so-called USP, you already have learned that, it's a unique selling proposition, the reason why we exist. Because cola and beer, some other companies can do that as well, and also as tasty, so that's not the reason we exist. But the reason is this whole concept of giving away power, sharing responsibility, and, well, finding a balance, which is basically the idea of sustainability, between social, environmental, and economic impacts you might have as a company. So I wrote them down in 2008 and put them on the website for free. So it could be a wise idea to write down your USP, of course, and then you have to store it and save somewhere and don't show it to anybody, because this is your main advantage, right? And I wanted to give that away for free because I had the idea that other companies might pick it up and use parts of it. It's 50 modules, designed in modules by purpose, because I wanted to other companies be able to pick certain modules, because there is not the right way of running a company. We have found a way, but other companies might need some modules from this only. And this worked out pretty nicely. So this is the list of cooperational partners, mostly drinks producers, most of them small. And they have used all of the modules with Frohlunda and Kollemate up there, or some or less modules. And I even helped funding some of these, 9 to be precise, although they also offer cola and beer for free. Now this hippie is going insane, right? He's helping the competitors for free to fund their own cola and beer selling business. If I do, more of them survive. 8 of them survived, which is pretty good in the industry. And then I have them as friends. So easy. We can share people, we can share crates, we can share logistics, we can share information. And what strikes me most is we can avoid competing. Sometimes I'm imagining me having to compete with all of these. How much energy would be wasted? How much negative energy would be produced? So I think it's pretty much easier to cooperate instead of competing. We have 3 colas right now and 1 beer, founded 2008, still by me. And then there's 2 other drinks, a mate and an elderflower lemonade, which look like they are from me, but they are not. They are from 2 collective members from Freiburg in Germany. And they decided to use everything we had collected and learned over the past years, even the design and the brand which we have been building up. And of course the bottling plant and the logistics and so on, all for free. And fund their own company with it, which kind of integrates in our developed project, which we call an open franchise. It's a franchise, kind of, with certain rules and certain ideas, but it's free, so it's an open franchise. And by opening up, they, of course, have become partners in redistributing our ideas. And when they talk to their customers, of course, they answer, why is it looking like this, and what's the idea with the anti-volume discount, and where does this come from, and so on. So they are getting like communication partners. And then we have a 3rd company within the inner network. This is Kollemate from Dresden, also not funded by me, but by Anne and Eduard. And now we have 3 formal companies with the inner circle, we could call it. And we can, again, share. This is from our website. Several people caring for inquiries to certain postal regions of Germany. And for example, Anne is working for Kolle and for Frohlunda and for Premium. And Benedikt is working for Frohlunda and for Premium. And I'm working for all 3 as well. And Michael is working for Frohlunda and Premium, and Gerge is working for all 3 of them. So we can share the job roles, basically, which makes it more stable for the job roles, because they know they don't have a single point of income, which can be, can be pretty unstable, but they have 3 sources of income, which makes it more stable for them. And sometimes we have more stuff to do or more inquiries, then they can work more for us, and sometimes it's the other way around, so it also gets a stabilizing feature to it. And this is a pretty soft reattribution of work, basically, and of the job description roles we have, but they are not binding. They can be changed at any given moment. And, well, this is a hard to explain process. Like when Elena thinks she wants to do more of logistics, then she asks, and somebody will give her something for logistics. And if Katja asks, oh, well, I'd like to stick to the accounting, so please take this inquiry from me, then somebody else can take over. So it's a kind of a soft redistribution of jobs, basically, which enables, on the other hand, the persons who work there not to stick to a certain job for years and years, but to re-change their own job, which, again, makes them happier, I guess. And there's emails and PGP keys as well, so it's for encryption. And there's also phone numbers. And there was a time when I had like 30 calls per day, because my phone number is also up there. And I want it to be up there. I want to be addressable as the main person. But with 30 calls a day, I think it gets on my nerves really quick, and I can't concentrate on my work anymore. So I decided to put there, I don't like phone calls, besides my phone number. It's still there, but I don't like phone calls. And as soon as I did that, I got like 1 or 2 calls per day. So the people, I don't know how to put this. I also can express my wishes and needs, and they are being respected. And if somebody wants to call, then there's lots of other numbers we can call. And I can work and don't get calls all the time. So it's pretty nice. And this soft style of running it, I think it's one key reason why we have so little problems with the partners. I told you before that we had problems with finding consensus on the labels, right? With the art picture and with the line of text on the front side. And one answer to this could be that we need a person deciding this quicker. And another possible answer is that we order like 3 months too early all the time. So if something goes wrong and we can't agree, we have up to 3 months to find a solution, which is so easy. Just not react to the pressure, but take out the pressure of the system. It's so easy. And of course, for the label printing guy, Michael, he has then pretty much anytime he wants, up to 3 months, to produce these labels, which in turn leads to that he forgets about the order, so we have to remind him all the time. And then we needed a very quick production once. Somebody screwed up and we had no labels for the beer. And we asked him, dear Michael, typically you have 3 months, and right now please be very quick. And he was very quick, because we cared for him before. Avoiding pressure. Avoiding pressure is about negotiation of pricing. I do so every December. I call the cola bottling plant and the beer brewery and ask, dear Alex, dear Urban, can you roughly guess about next year? Do you have the chance to lower the prices? Then please say so. Will they stay the same? Then please say so. Do you have to raise them? Please say so and explain. And the answer will be all right. And that's it. Negotiation is over. It takes like 10 seconds. And as a result, we buy there cheaper than other producers do. Because with the others, he knows he has to fight. And for every 10% of cent, he has to fight. And with us, there's no fight necessary. If he has to rise, then he can rise, and that's it. And this strategy, you could call it, I think it's more from the heart. We try to care for people and get more back than we actually asked for, with logistics as well. In the beginning, I got to know to another Michael, who is a truck driver, and he had been doing logistics for 20 years. And he asked me, what is your order? And I was like, I'm just founder, I have no idea what to order you. You have been in the industry for 20 years. What do you actually need? When roughly would you like to deliver? And that's how we still do it. I asked Michael, when roughly do you like to deliver and what suits you? And check if this suits us, and that's it. And with Michael especially, I handed him over the control which amounts he delivers. So he calls the dealers around Hamburg and asks them, what amount do you roughly need? And then he decides over Mohammed, because Mohammed is a little mixed up sometimes, and he decides for Mohammed how much he needs. And until he did, there was not a single failure. There was no products in Hamburg. So I'm just giving away control and trusting Michael, because he's like 30 years in the industry right now and getting more back than I actually asked for. And it's also less work, as you can imagine. I just have to send his invoices, and that's it. And this is still a company which produces and delivers and sells to Germany, Austria, and Switzerland only, for 2 reasons. First reason is, of course, we have to talk a lot to people, so we need the same language, basically. And second reason is, we have put up a full life cycle assessment of the products we deliver, with all the ecological outcome of the whole production chain and the delivery chain and so on. And we found out that we shouldn't be delivering more than 600 kilometers around the bottling plant, which is roughly the 3 German-speaking countries. But we get inquiries from Copenhagen, Barcelona, Warsaw, Amsterdam, Dubai, Tokyo, Taiwan, India. I have no idea how they find us. There isn't even an English website. And when they want to buy, I reply, I'm sorry, we can't deliver due to ecological limitations of our planet. We only have one, and we are using 1.6 planet right now, so we need to be a little regional here. And of course, we can share everything we have learned and all the recipes, so you can set up premium Cola India if you want to, for free. But we can't deliver, we're sorry. And the guy from India replied, well, what if I pick it up? It's the same distance, right? If you pick it up, so there's no point in that. Okay, the company is growing every year, although we don't have advertising still. And this looks pretty nice, but it was dangerous here, life-threatening for the company, because the rise was too quick. We couldn't afford to pay for the next bigger and bigger and bigger production up front. And we could have paid our suppliers later as one possible answer, which I didn't like, as you can imagine. We could have gone to the bank, present this chart, get a loan, and add pressure to the company. We would have to earn the interest rates and sell and so on, which I also didn't like, as you can imagine. So I was a little unsure what to do. And then Norbert and Angelo called, which are our two biggest wholesalers, and they know it, of course, and they offered to pay quicker. Those of you who already have some working experience, ever heard of the biggest customers of a company calling and offering to pay quicker? Never happens, right? Very rarely happens. So with this caring for each other approach, we have kind of a hidden insurance in there. If we have a crisis, these people call and argue, we have a problem, which is a very fine distinction between you have a problem, we. And when we looked this up to the regions, there were discussions because the region number 2 was stagnating. And my fellow Hamburg Collective member Miguel thought we need to do something there because there's stagnation. And I argued, no, we just have to wait because this is already a very big region for us. And if there's something going wrong here, we have a big problem. So we might want to wait until these regions catch up. So to keep it slow, avoid risks. And this approach is also vital to two big customers. We had like a festival which is called the Fusion Festival. Maybe some of you have heard about that. It's 80,000 people in the northern Germany, and they wanted to buy another truck of cola, which is nice, and also 10 trucks of beer, which is our yearly amount again. So it's a pretty big chance also for the distribution, and fusion festivals are just the right people we want to reach. But imagine if there's something going wrong. This is always my part of, imagine the storage burns down where all the beer is located. Or maybe the festival is being called off for bad weather or something. Or maybe something happens. They needn't, you don't know. Then the probability of happening is very low, but the risk is very high. We wouldn't survive that. So I argued, well, this is pretty nice, but it's just too big. Please take 1 truck of beer and not 10 trucks of beer. And they not only understood, but they liked this idea of avoiding risks and caring for everybody, that they handed me the control of their whole drinks logistics last year. 27 trucks, 2 of them from us. And the first years, they had given this control to a professional drinks dealer. And that guy has learned at the university how drinks logistics works. He wrote down the amounts and the delivery dates and asked 3 trucking companies, got offers, and the cheapest offer got the deal. And then there were 2 delivery dates, and on the first delivery day, there were 18 trucks there waiting in the morning. And it took like in the afternoon to unload them. It was hectic a little bit. They had 2 pallets falling over, so they had to stop everything and clean it up because before they could go on. And the products were wasted. So, well, professional maybe, but they didn't care for all the people involved there. And of course, I did that differently. I asked the trucking guys, when roughly do you want to deliver? And connected them with the others, so if somebody takes longer, then he can just phone the next guy and they can rearrange. And thereby, they had like 1 or 2 trucks waiting there over the course of the day, and it was pretty easy for them to unload and to store it where they could easily get to it again. So just by caring, I took away lots of stress from them. And then I organized that leftover bottles who are still closed and full, they wouldn't be sent back to the producer, but to the next nearest dealer. And he was asked to take a bigger amount, and the producer was asked to give him a longer payment term. And then the amount wasn't traveling to the festival and back, but to the festival and some distance to the next dealer, which is better for the environment. And in the past, they had also water there, which they sent back to the producer, and this water was coming from the festival. It was dirty from the outside. And they decided to trash it, because it was not sellable anymore. And I found out a drinks dealer who could operate a gardening hose and who just cleaned these bottles, and then we sold them again. And also better for the environment than to trash a pretty nice water bottle. And in the end, they had a very stressful festival concerning the logistics. They gave us 9 cards to go there and celebrate for ourselves, which was also pretty nice. And they saved 5,000 euros on logistics by accident. I didn't take that job to save on money. My job was to care for everybody. And the result was less stress, but also savings. In 2013, the authorities wanted to take a look, and I was scared. They can close down a company if they want to. But I'm a very careful person, so I never used tricks and techniques to hide money, so this was one area where this could work out, and I have a very good accounting girl, which is Katja. She's also very good. And then we got out of this check with not a single complaint, although they checked 3 years in the past, and they had a hard time understanding us, I can tell you. And I think we have proven a point. We are working in the framework of capitalism, which is still there. I don't like it, but it's still there. We have German laws we have to abide, which also worked out, so we didn't have a single lawsuit. It's all fine. We have the tax regulations, which we also kept. So there's pretty much everything in the framework, but still we are doing everything wrong. So this is possible. If some entrepreneur argues with you that he has to use pressure on the suppliers, that he has to advertise, that he has to grow, that he has to, maybe it's just not true and he just doesn't know it. So please tell him. And then the distribution part gets bigger. So this is from teaching persons, which I like as ideas, but to me it feels like the whole system is pretty proven in the drinks industry, but I want to prove it somewhere else as well, so it can spread to other industries. And that's why I issued a project with the German Foundation. They are funding another collective member and me for going to 12 other companies of all kinds, from communal water supplier to caring for the elderly people with a printing house, and establish our approach to networks of stakeholders there, basically. And then they reply. For example, in the caring for the elderly facility, they have 13 houses spread over Hamburg. They have one central big kitchen, and the food is prepared there and then sent to the houses and then prepared again. And it's always a matter of discussions and so on. And we sat there with these 13 home managers, and I was asking maybe the stupidest question I could imagine. Did you talk to the central kitchen already about these problems? And they were like looking at each other like, no. We always sent the criticism and that's it. We never got a response. So maybe you want to talk to this central kitchen to find a way to organize this better, which is, yeah, I think it's a logical thing to do. Then I was with a communal water supplier, and they have other problems. When they bury the water hoses, they are pretty big and planned for like 50 years of usage. And within the past 50 years, people have been using less and less water. People are saving on water. And now it's too less to enable a steady flow. So they have to buy additional trucks who go there with additional water and speed through these tubes to make them accessible again. And my, again, stupid question was, did you issue maybe a campaign talking to the consumers about that and maybe offering a flat rate pricing up to a certain amount so that this amount will be keeping the tubes accessible? And they were like, no, we didn't talk to the consumers, and now talk to the consumers. And then I went to Lufthansa, which is a quite big company in Frankfurt. They have 4 buildings. And they wanted to get rid of one building, and they had no idea why. And they had this idea before I went there, but I watched over the process. They issued that there will be no fixed working desks anymore, but just a mobile storage with your things you need for working, and then you will be rearranging your workplace every day. And by doing so, lots of the really melted in concrete hierarchy models were kind of accessible, and they have to offer 70 desk working places for 100 people right now, and before they had to offer 100 desk working places for 100 people, so they can save on one building. And then I went to Unilever, which is also a pretty big company, and they had a horizontal approach in their company. They had one chapter who was doing all the marketing for all the products. They have hundreds of products. And other branches doing the production, and other branches doing the everything. And they keep working against each other within the same company, which is pretty insane, I guess. And they decided to set up a vertical structure. So there's one branch right now who does everything for shampoo, for example, and now it works. And then I went to Deutsche Bahn, which is the German national railway company. And they invited me last year for 6 whole days to think about a leadership model which can be suitable for the future. And I was able to add 2 things to their model. First thing is, you want to have a leading person which can decide quickly in a crisis. You will need that in some crisis maybe. And in peaceful times, you will need a kind of moderating person. So now they have a moderating approach. And they asked to be guided along the process with several chapters who want to try this. And they are very slow in actually setting this up, so we are still talking. But if this works, I will be becoming such a, I don't know, counseling guy for democratization of companies, which is pretty cool, I guess. And also it has a bigger reach because they have 300,000 people working there. So if I manage to help them a little bit on the way, then I think it could have a great impact. And for me personally, the job I do, it's the best in the world, I think, and it has at least 6 impacts or 6 hidden salaries, I like to put it. I can make a living from it. 18 euros per hour is like 2,880 euros per month, which is pretty much enough. I have enough money. And I think we need to come back to a society where there is enough money. Because if everybody wants to earn more and more and more, this has to go at the expenses, at the costs of other people somewhere else on the planet. Leads to pollution somewhere else on the planet, leads to fight for resources, leads to wars, leads to refugees. So I think we need to come back to an enough, where you have enough. And this living I make there, I don't have a single employer, but I have 1,680 commercial partners and some 10,000 of consumers, so it's pretty stable, I think. I will be earning this amount of money next week again. And at the same time, I'm free to go here, or not to go, wear green socks while talking, and say everything I like to say, which is not possible in every job I had been doing in the past before. And I feel that the work I do there is something meaningful. I care for people, basically, in an industry where all markets and contracts take over the responsibility. And I'm invited here, so I can hopefully spread some of my ideas to you, and maybe you will taking home some of them and think about it. And not a single day of me working is the same, so there's always some new challenges, some new problems to think about, something new I have to do. So if you argue like, okay, we will be taking the freedom, for example, put you in a suit, put you in an office, forbid what you want to say, and you will be getting 1,000 euros per month more. I wouldn't do it, because I already have enough money, basically. If you remove the safety, bind me to one employer, give me 1,000 euros more per month, I wouldn't do it. Take any of these aspects. I think it's really necessary when you decide which next step in your career you might want to take, that you think about the money, of course, but think about all the other factors involved as well. Because if you have very much money, but quite unstable, not free, with no meaning, no reach, and no development, some friends of mine do, they work in advertising and make lots of money, I think you will be getting unhappy probably over the course of time. And this slide is empty because I want to make a special point to the end of my talk. There's sometimes the criticism that Premium Cola as a collective and project exists because I am the way I am, which is true, but I have become the way I am through the project as well. And with all the people who work there, it wouldn't exist. It would be just an idea I could be presenting to you today. But again, there's another twist to it, because I'm not too intelligent, I'm not very much educated, and I'm just a single person. A single person who might want to make a difference and rewrite the rules and stick to that over a given period of time, of course. But I'm just one person, and it's possible to put up such a project. So if you want to rewrite the rules, I think you can be that person. And that's my talk. Thanks. Okay. Now we have some time left for questions and answers. How much?
No.
Half an hour. Okay. This was too much information for you right now?
Actually, before I saw people running NPO with business model, but I feel like today I saw how you run a business with NPO model. This is my personal feeling. So I'm just curious, how maybe you already talked about the administrative part. How do like everybody's salary is decided based on the group, or which group's position, and how the people is if they get promoted, how the position of them, how much you should increase the salary or something.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make that position?
Okay, it might sound a little crazy to you, but you can't get a higher salary if you work better or quicker or smarter with this project. You can earn a different role, which gives you more freedom probably. You can earn a different role in which you like the job more than the job before. But you can't earn more by working better or bringing more education to the table or something. And this is in parts driven by the idea of equality and equal needs, of course, but in parts because we have looked on the lives of people, basically. So if you are in a situation where you are rather young, educated and healthy and have a family and everything's all right, then you might be able to deliver more work or quicker or better work than somebody else. But there will be times coming when you will be having a crisis. Who of you knows a person who has never had a crisis in life? No. So we will be having crisis. And of course, you can't get a rise by getting promoted, but you also can't get depromoted. You can't get a lower salary when you are in a situation where you are not able to deliver so much work.
How was your crisis management
that question? The question was how are crises of the company actually being dealt with? So is it me trying to solve them, or is it a collective of people? Is that right?
Yes, but if you didn't have as much time, would you try to contact everyone, or is there a certain team you would go to for that instance?
Okay. The forum I've presented to you takes about like 15 minutes of my daily time. So it's pretty easy to run this while caring for everything else I have to care for. And if there's a crisis for the company, I would typically put the crisis there, explain why I think this is a crisis and what my thoughts are on how we could solve it. And then we would decide with everybody who wants to co-decide on that what we are actually going to do. And we had 2 crises to sustain in the course of the company. First crisis was through a growth which was too quickly. I explained that. And the second crisis was one person who stole from us, got fired, and then tried to attack us over social media for a year. And I had no idea how to react to somebody who tries to do damage to us, because I never had such a person before. So I was a little overwhelmed with it and had to come up with a solution. And the solution was a little shift just in my head, because this guy was actually searching with lots of his time for weak spots with this project. And if he found one, he would tweet about it, brag about it, tell newspapers about it, and so on. So I just had to listen what he was putting online and closing the gaps he found. So he was actually helping. And when he found out, then he stopped. And these were the only 2 crises, I would put them, that we had. And yes, I think some of the collective development and actually running and moderating crises relies on me. But I've taken special efforts to establish the organizational team with other people who also know the contracts, the logistics, the structure, and so on, so they can actually run this project if I might get sick or get hit by a bus or something. And I've also put in quite some effort to establish another moderating person, which is Anne. She's with us for like 5 years now. And if you have seen the Augenhöhe film, or if you will be seeing it, there's one situation where we have an offline meeting, which we rarely have, and the discussion escalates nearly to a veto. And I'm not even in the room, because I make a special point of being not there one of the 3 days we have this meeting, to enable Anne to train this moderating style and to get her to know everybody else and to, well, establish a trust. So if I'm not there, Anne can take over. And there's one area of, you could say, leadership, I don't like the word really, where I was unsuccessful. I was unsuccessful in building up any kind of second Uwe who also sees the whole picture and tries to foresee the next problem and develop the next thought and go to Deutsche Bahn and not be kicked out there and so on. So I was unsuccessful to build up such a person yet, but I hope I will be successful in the future.
How do you find the right people for your company that are actually fitting into the concept?
I have feared that question. If you want to enter the forum, you just have to drink 1 bottle once, see 1 collective member in person once, we have even 2 right now, and give your real name. That's it. And then you can take part in all the decision making. And if you have a login to this forum, then you will also be seeing which jobs come up there, and you can just apply for a job. And typically we issue a roughly job description, what problem, what task we roughly want to be dealt with, and then ask who would like to do it. And then you would be writing next to it how roughly you would approach the task. And then we have consensus and you can actually try it. And if we have like 2 or 3 or 5 people applying for a certain role, then we anonymize the approaches and discuss in consensus again who should be trying it. So there's no real assessment center, no checking of high school diplomas or university diplomas or something, because we actually want the working biographies of people to be as flexible as possible. For example, when Katja applied for the accounting, she didn't have any experience in accounting. And she is such a good accounting colleague right now. And this was possible because we let her try it. And of course, it happens that people take over a job and that it doesn't work out. And then we talk about it. We had one person taking over the role of speakers support. These hobby salespeople we have there still today. We don't have professional salespeople. And these hobby salespeople need a little caring, like caring for dates, for getting samples, like something. And one guy offered to take over that position. And his first thing was that he renamed it. Was ist Englisch für Vertriebsleitung? Distribution manager. So he was trying to give the people orders and making them sign forms and making them meet certain sales numbers and so on. And of course, this failed with hobby salespeople, and nobody even replied. They called me and said, "What's this guy doing?" And so we talked about it and agreed that we give him another role. And that's it. As easy as it sounds.
Do you think this business model is, do you think you can replicate it in other countries that may have different cultures than Germany? You know, I'm from the US, and specifically I'm thinking the US is a very individualistic country, and we also have agreements that are very, very formal, based solely on contracts with litigation being a big threat. Do you see this as a viable business model in the US, for example, given these, you know, cultural and business conditions?
I have to admit, I've never been to the US, so I don't really know the US culture. But the things you described, I think we have them in a similar form here as well. So it's a pretty formalized, pretty strict, regulated country here as well. And there's also lots of people going to business schools who just think about their own profits. So, I don't know, let's try.
Good answer.
Where do you see the limits of growth for your company?
We have discovered by running into a crisis that more than 10% of growth per year and more than 30% for spring. When it gets warmer, people drink more, so we have to cap it there at 30% per quarter and 10% per year. And this is about the speed of growth. And there will be a maximum size of the company somewhere. And I think we can determine this when we realize things get out of hands. We can't oversee them anymore. We don't want to control them, we want to oversee them and moderate the interdependencies. And we have to stop just before, I think. But at the same time, we want the ideas to spread quicker. So we decoupled them from the actual business and made them open source, so other companies can take these ideas and go on. And I have no idea how big the company can actually grow. Maybe it's with 1,700 partners or 2,700, I don't know. But I know pretty much when we get there, we would have to stop. And there's a famous saying, at least I find him famous, from Nico Pech, he's a German professor, and he's pushing forward the post-growth economy. And he argues that some companies are just too big to be run in an appropriate way. And we have to come back to companies which you can run in a socially proper way. And everything else is just too big.
Do you ever consider to move to other product categories?
Other product categories. Okay, I think it helps that we have a product which is has a little entry cost. So if we were producing like cars, it would be a little bit more difficult. And that we have a product which has to be renewed on the same distribution channel. So we build up the wholesaler and the dealer and the gastronomy, and then the product is being consumed and the bottle goes back and another one should come. So it's a returnable structure, you could argue. And I think that helps actually. And it also helps that cola and beer are pretty straightforward products. You don't have to explain that much. But we still have a lot of explaining to do, so it helps when the product itself is easy. On the other hand, with the experience we have gathered right now with quite different styles, types of companies, like a caring facility for the elderly, and they can come little steps forward by this approach. Deutsche Bahn, railway company, they can get steps forward with this approach. I think there's steps possible nearly everywhere, excluding if the product itself is designed to make people dependent, like tobacco basically. We do alcohol, so there's a little amount of customers who might have a problem with that, and that's why we put aside 10% of the shares for alcoholism precaution, and the other 90% have no problem with that. But cigarettes are designed to make you dependent on them. And I think you couldn't produce a tank with this consensus democracy model, because then the future people who will be shot at would just deny the building of this tank. I have to say that you're giving pretty smart questions, so thanks for that.
Is there any legal advice you get, or you have situations that you have to ask for? Like you said, okay, there's no contract, so you don't need anyone to write contracts or to, like, yeah, take lawsuits against anyone, but is there any situations you need legal advice on who is doing it?
Mm-hmm. We have a collective member who has his 8th university degree right now, and one of it is he's a lawyer. And we had this problem with a person we had to fire, and he was a salesperson, so we looked at the German sales laws, to be precise, and see how we should formulate this in the letter that it goes through. But that was the only time I can remember we had to have a lawyer. We had to ask him for advice.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's more than 14 years of running the company. I still can believe it myself. Okay, if there are no further questions, I think you want to enjoy the nice weather outside. So you will be closing the lecture, and I'll be still here for questions. And you can drop me an email as well and write to me on Twitter. I forgot to put your contact details there because we were in the train and preparing it on the fly, so I'm sorry. But I can give you her contact details as well, of course, if you want to have a question there. So thanks for attending and listening. See you next time.